Why is it so hard for white women to form a sisterhood community? Buckle up. So there's a short answer to this and a long answer to this and a lot of nuance, but I'm going to give you my take. And here it is. White women have a really hard time forming a sisterhood community because we don't trust each other. And we don't trust each other because we treat each other the way that we treat Black women when Black women are not around. And I'm going to explain that.
Isn't this interesting, ladies and gentlemen? We need to talk about this because this is some hot tea. And I never expected her to come out and say it bluntly like that. But you know what? These days, remember when Black people say that we are tired of y'all claiming that, oh, we are patriotic, we are for you, oh my God, get up and do the effing work. Yeah, some of them are doing the effing work. And get ready, buckle up, because this is going to be a very good treaty.
So here's the thing about whiteness. Whiteness, like, this is how I conceptualize it. Whiteness is a fractal, right? So a fractal is a shape that is the same at large scale as it is at small scale. Tree, branch, twig. That's a fractal. Whiteness works the same way. Whiteness structures itself the same way in the nation that it does in the community, that it does in the family. And that happens because whiteness, to me anyway, is a set of values, not necessarily a set of beliefs. And I'm talking about whiteness as like distinct from white supremacy. This is just like, this is the value system that kind of our country is based on, kind of a lot of us were raised with. And it's not predicated on belief. You can change your beliefs and still be in the value system of whiteness. So this is just how I conceptualize it to myself. So the thing that whiteness, one of the things that whiteness values a lot is hierarchy. And it's a very specific kind of toxic hierarchy where all of the good stuff goes up and all of the bad stuff goes down. So the higher you are in the hierarchy, the more benefit of the doubt you get, the more accommodations you receive, the more people are willing to like humor you, the more power you get, whether it's political, social, monetary power. Just the more protection and status you have. The lower you are in the hierarchy, the more you get shit on. The lower you are on the hierarchy, the less respect you're entitled to, the less care, the less concern. And the people lower down on the hierarchy are also the receptors of a lot of redirected negative emotions from the people higher on the hierarchy. And for example, people who are born in the white women box are heavily socialized to redirect their anger away from the people above them and down to the people below them, right? That's why you'll see a white woman who got cheated on her husband go into a store and make a cashier cry, right? Who got cheated on her husband? Blech. Or like a white woman who like got yelled at by her boss, goes home and shits all over her kids, right? Because white women are heavily socialized to redirect that anger downward. And the thing is, that hierarchy exists no matter who's there. So as soon as a black woman comes in, she's automatically at the bottom of the hierarchy and she gets all the shit. But if there are no black women or whatever, or like other people who are lower on the hierarchy, then white women will do it to each other. Every white woman I know has a story of being abandoned, abused, exploited, like by a white woman she considers a friend. And so we don't trust each other. And because I think we think of white supremacy as a set of beliefs and not think about the values aspect of whiteness, it's really hard for us to deconstruct why we treat each other that way. And I think it's really hard for us to actually build a true sisterhood community that's not just based on like support all women except for the ones I don't like. And the thing about it is, one last thing, I don't want to ramble too much, but the one last thing about it is that hierarchy exists, that value system exists everywhere. You can see it in small Southern white women church community. And you can also see it in white women-coded, well, I mean, white men do it too, but you can also see that hierarchy in white leftist spaces, progressive blue leftist spaces. It's pervasive and it's harmful. And I think it's something that we really need to talk about deconstructing in terms of how we interact with each other.
And that is just the beginning. She goes ahead to spill more tea.
Hey, fellow white women people, let's talk. So I know, because I too was raised in the white woman box, I know that you are lonely right now. I know you're scared. I know that white supremacist culture has taught you that the only way to be safe is to be accepted, to conform, to be accepted by a group. And I know that you've been taught that if you're not accepted by a group, it means you're unlovable and you'll be isolated forever. Okay? That's our trauma. We were given that on purpose. That's how they push us into doing shit. Okay? I need you to stop making that trauma Black women's problem. Okay? I get it. I'm with you. Black women are fantastic at community building. They're fantastic at resource sharing. They are measurably some of the best in the country, possibly like of almost any group, the best at taking care of each other. And I know you see that, and I know you want that, and I know it sucks that they don't have enough for you, okay? But our loneliness, our wounds, our issues around rejection are not theirs to heal, okay? And I need you to listen to me on this, because once again, Black people, especially Black women, have created something cool that they're excited about in this Hillman Talk thing. And I see white women who are either trying to like get included or getting their feelings hurt because they feel excluded. Like, nobody's saying you can't participate, but it wasn't created for you. And I know that white culture has taught you that if something isn't for you, it means that you've been deemed unworthy, but that's not what it is, okay? I'm telling you this right now. It is not a personal reflection on your worth if you are not accepted and included, okay? It is a statement of limited resources, all right? And we need to heal that trauma in ourselves, and we need to figure out how to connect with each other, okay? Because there are so many of us, and we're so lonely, that if we start depending on Black women to fill it, we're gonna swallow them up and leave nothing behind, okay? So let them be. Let them have their thing. Work on ourselves, work on our own communities, work on our own traumas and our own loneliness, and leave them alone. So this was left on my video about why white women are mean to each other, in which I talk about the whiteness cultural value of hierarchy and how that works, in my opinion. And one of the illustrations I used for redirected anger was a white woman gets yelled at by her boss. She goes home and yells at her kids because she can't yell at the person higher on the ladder than her. She has to yell at the people lower on the ladder. This question says, what if the Black woman is her boss? At that point, the Black woman is higher than the white woman. You would think. But no. So let's talk about conformity. Conformity is another, in my opinion, fundamental value of whiteness. And by conformity, I don't mean everyone trying to be the same as everyone else. I mean everyone is trying to conform to an ideal that sits at top of the hierarchy ladder. At the national level, the ideal is rich, landowning white men, right? They build the country, they build it for themselves. That's the cultural ideal. It is what it is. But there are lots of different ladders and lots of different ideals, and they all look very different, depending on where you're from and who you are. But there is one thing about every ladder that is the same, and that is the ideal at the top is white something. Okay? Whiteness, it will not surprise you to learn that the whiteness cultural value of hierarchy and conformity put whiteness at the top of the ladder. So in business, as in this example, let's talk about this example, the ideal is successful white business bro, right? And there's a lot of things that go into that depending on the business, but business is very based on conformity, right? So they call it professionalism and cultural fit. So the top of that hierarchy ladder is white male business bro, successful white male business bro. And the closer you can get to that, the more options you have in the country. So let's imagine for a second that we are a white woman in this system. Now, you are good at your job. You know you're good at your job because white men have been promoted over you for being a better cultural fit. So you know you're good at your job because white men have been promoted over you despite not being as good as you are. So you've also internalized very deeply this hierarchical conformity mindset. And so you're also trying to conform while being good at your job as hard as you possibly can. And we can talk about kind of like what whiteness does to white women and that specific weird little trauma thing later. But there's like, you have to be aggressive, but not too aggressive. You have to be confident, but not too confident. Attractive, but not too attractive. You have to like dress nicely, but not like too nicely. Like you have to be confident and subservient at the same time, which is a mind fuck. Anyway, so you're a white woman. You're in the system. You're conforming as hard as you can. You're working as hard as you can. And a position opens up and they hire from the outside or even from the inside an incredibly qualified black woman. And now you're pissed. Now, if you're racist and you're fine with that, you know why you're pissed. You're like, taking my jobs. I deserve the job because I am white, obviously. If you are the kind of white woman who is trying not to be racist, but you haven't unpacked that like foundational value system, you are not going to like be able to admit to yourself that that's why you're mad. Because in your head, you're like, well, obviously, like, she doesn't deserve the job less because she's black. That's stupid. I don't think that. But in your core, where the foundational value system is, you know that conformity system has whiteness at its heart. But it's not just that. It's also because black women are locked out of the conformity-based system of advancement, and they generally come in because they are qualified. A lot of times that means that the black woman will be more confident than the white woman feels like she's allowed to be, more settled and like sure of herself than the white woman feels like she's allowed to be. She'll a lot of times move in situations with more assurance than the white woman feels like she's allowed to have. And that I know is also a tightrope for black women because it's, everything you do is viewed out of proportion and it's very easy to get the angry label and the aggressive label because you don't get the benefit of the doubt in that situation that a white woman might get. But from the white woman's perspective, the black woman has come in and not only gotten the job and not fit the whiteness piece, but gotten the job and not fit the other conformity pieces that the white woman was trying to do. And that, if you're a white woman who hasn't unpacked all that shit, feels incredibly unfair. And then white women freak out because now you have somebody over you who's also beneath you in your, like, but like, you should be allowed to be angry at this person, but you're not allowed to be angry at this person. And then white women's brains fritz out and they kind of lose their shit. So that's what happens in a lot of cases. And I'd love to unpack that more if you guys have any more questions. But I didn't want to lose this comment. And it says, so for many white women, there's truly no safe space, and they double down on anger and hate. We are listening to understand. First of all, I really want to acknowledge and appreciate the generosity of spirit behind this comment. Thank you. Also, let's talk about, yes, you're correct. Let's talk about white women trauma, because this is something I think about a lot. White women trauma is very difficult to explain in the context of humans. So I'm going to explain it in the context of something else. And this isn't intended to be dismissive. This is just the best way I've found, the closest thing I found to be able to explain why white women sometimes are the way they are. Let's talk about small dogs. So dog trainers will tell you that small dogs are not inherently nasty, bitey, awful little gremlins. That behavior is generally a way indicative of the way that the dog has been raised or treated. And the reason that happens for small dogs is because people don't treat them as dogs. They treat them as toys or accessories, comfort objects, right? And so when you're a small dog, on the one hand, like, your life's amazing, right? Like, nobody's like putting you out in the yard all day and all night. You get all the food you want, you get soft beds, you get constant attention, you get carried everywhere, but also you get carried everywhere. So it turns out that when you don't treat a dog like a dog, when you don't let a dog be a dog and do things like sniff and explore and go on dog adventures and do dog things, that you get a very, very insecure dog, because they're not allowed to do, they're prevented from doing the things that would let them build confidence. The other factor for small dogs, as I understand it, is that their autonomy is constantly being violated. So when you go to pet like a Doberman or a German Shepherd and they growl at you, then if you're a smart person, you don't pet the Doberman or the German Shepherd. If you go to pet a Chihuahua and it growls at you, you don't have to pay any attention to that. You should, but you don't have to, right? And a lot of people think small dog aggression is cute, right? So imagine being a creature who, like, isn't treated like an autonomous being, but is constantly, like, being told that their anger and distress signals are cute, and constantly being held and petted, and when they don't want to be. There's also no consequences for small dog anger, because people don't take it seriously. So what that does is it makes for, like, a very insecure, fearful, aggressive little dog. And that kind of upbringing also makes for an insecure, fearful, aggressive white woman. And that's the closest way I have to explain that. It's also worth noting that there are no safe spaces in whiteness in general. That's not really what whiteness is for. Safety is one of the things that whiteness and white supremacy hold over us to make us do what it wants. You have to do this to get safety. You have to do that to get safety. But that safety is always contingent on performance. And so, because it's another method of control. So the answer to your question is no. So I agree with this comment, 100%. But I am going to use it as a jumping off point to clarify some stuff. So I have a fair amount of white women in the comments of my previous video, which was about why white women don't trust each other and how we carry the values of whiteness and the hierarchy, specifically the hierarchy of whiteness, with us wherever we go. I have a lot of women white women specifically in my comment section, that are saying, well, talking about male validation and saying, well, it's because of patriarchy, the hierarchy is patriarchy, and we need to decenter men. And this is an example of a trap I think a lot of specifically progressive white people fall into. And that's confusing belief and the value system of whiteness. And what I mean by that is that if you are trained to think in terms of hierarchy, to think in terms of conformity, to think in terms of punishment, which are some of the kind of foundational things of whiteness, then you will recreate that system no matter what and no matter where. Stop it! No matter where you go. And so you could be the staunchest feminist that's ever feminist and completely decenter men, and you could still recreate a toxic hierarchy based on a different set of ideals and conformity to those ideals. And a lot of people do, okay? That happens a lot. And so I really think we need to have a conversation about the difference between kind of our underlying value system or foundation that we as white people are taught and the way we move through the world, and how that doesn't really have a lot to do with our belief systems, because I think we confuse one for the other, and then we end up sort of perpetuating those problems. Also, this is Kona. He is rude. He's a rude old cat. Kona, say hello.